What's up people on the interwebs, hope you're having a good day, and we are back with another video about Japan. And today I'm going to do 3 pros of being a woman in Japan. And if you are not a woman, then still stick around, because these are still some useful things for you guys to know as well. So stick around and watch about 3 pros of being a woman in Japan. So let's jump right on in. So the first one is walking alone at night. Japan is one of the safest countries in the world. So for me, it's really nice that I can actually walk outside in the middle of the night, and you don't really have to feel anxious or worried that someone is following you or just kind of like eerily in the back. If you are a woman, you'll know this feeling of walking at night, and you always just kind of feel that sort of paranoid feeling of someone's behind you. So it's really nice to not have that out in Japan. Obviously still be wary, of course, but it's definitely a lot calmer, less anxious to walk home at night. Because to be fair, I did walk alone at night quite a lot in England, but it definitely feels a lot calmer to walk out here than in England. I'd always felt a little bit paranoid, and I'd always kind of have like my keys in like a little kind of Wolverine position, just in case you met some random guy. And I did on some occasions, you meet some random strangers, so it's quite nice to feel a lot safer and just less anxious walking in Japan at night. The next one is if you are pregnant in Japan and you're about to have a child, I definitely think having a child in Japan is a lot better, since in England, the second you or she are in labour and you give birth to the child, obviously they do their quick checks to make sure you are okay, but once they kind of see you're fine and the baby is fine, they're going to kick you out and then get ready for the next people in labour. And I think especially if it's your first child, it's very daunting that you've literally just birthed this child, and then the second it's been born and you're both okay, the hospitals chuck you out and you've got to fend for your own. Where in Japan, when you give birth, it's very common you stay in the hospital for 5 to 10 days depending on the situation, where it gives you time to recover from the labour, and you've also got medical professionals there teaching you how to care for a child and also making sure your child is safe while you're recovering. So overall, I just think that kind of longer stay in the hospital is good just for your body recovery, good for the child, and it's great that they actually give you some lessons on how to care for an infant. You also get a childbirth lump sum allowance, which is 420,000 yen. So this fee, or this lump sum, is used just to kind of cover the cost of the childbirth. And obviously if you don't use it all, then you can use the rest for any other kind of medical payment for the childcare, or just the whole looking after the child if you don't use the full 420,000 yen. But most situations it tends to be eaten in the childbirthing labour costs, since on average, depending on the situation where you are, it costs around 500,000 yen to give birth in Japan. But it's really important, if you actually do have a child in Japan as well, you need to make sure you have health insurance, since how the healthcare works in Japan, the government will pay 70% of medical bills, and then you have to cover the last 30%. And from what I've heard from the people who've had to pay for the rest of the childcare bills, it kind of varies between $1,000 to $3,000. So especially if you're American, because I've heard in America, if you for the labour bills, it costs around $40,000 to give birth in America. So if you're American, to probably pay between $1,000 and $3,000, that's really good. Obviously, even for England, this is probably more for culture shock, since healthcare is free in England, but I think the kind of higher efficiency and service you get out here, it definitely makes up the kind of benefit of you having to pay a couple $1,000s for just better quality care. I feel like health insurance or just the whole healthcare system could be a video on its own, since it's just a really interesting topic I find, especially with all the different regions. But definitely I think with the quality of care and you stay longer in hospitals, definitely makes me think if I ever had a child, I definitely would rather prefer having or giving birth out in Japan than in England. And then for my last one, in Japan, as a woman, you get paid menstruation leave. So if you are on your period and it is too painful to actually come in to work, you can claim your menstruation leave. Depending where you are and when you work, it's really important you need to check your contract, as some places I've heard they do give it, but it's non-paid leave, and others it's paid leave. So I checked my contract. I do have menstruation leave. This is paid leave for me, and depending where you are, it varies between 1 to 3 days every month you get this menstruation leave. So for my contract, I get 2 paid menstruation leave days every month, which I think is pretty cool. Obviously in countries like in England, technically you kind of do have it, but you'd have to claim it as a sick day leave rather than it specifically being a menstruation day leave, which I think it's good to kind of separate it, because if you're ill too much, and especially if you're being ill because of just having really bad period cramps and all the other side effects that come along with having a period, you know, I've been in situations, especially my old job, if you're ill too often, you have to go into silly like HR meetings of like, why are you being ill? How can we fix it? And I definitely know if you are constantly ill for that, you're going to go into one of these silly HR meetings and they're going to be like, well, how can we fix it? And it's like, well, you can't fix if you just have really bad painful periods. Sometimes it's just a part of nature, unfortunately, and you just go into whole silly meetings over nothing. So to have this split and for it to also be paid is really good. From what I've also heard in my little community as well, make sure if you do claim it as well, you really need to emphasise that you want to take your menstruation leave, as for some places they get a bit funny if you try and take it. I don't really know why, it seems a bit strange. I think from what I've heard it's more paperwork for them to fill out if you're going to take it as menstruation leave. So just make sure you really emphasise that you want to take it as menstruation leave rather than sick leave. But overall I think that's really good that they have paid menstruation leave in Japan, and obviously I haven't used it yet, but it's nice to have that insurance that I can take sick leave if I have a day where I've got really bad period cramps. But there you guys have it. Those are 3 pros to living in Japan as a woman. Soon enough, when I figure out how to do more banking in Japan, I'm definitely going to do a video on the banking systems in Japan. As today I'm a little bit depressed as I tried to get a Visa debit card from my bank account, but I got rejected because they only give Visa debit cards to permanent residents, where my visa is a 3-year visa, so they wouldn't allow me to have a Visa debit card, which I'm hoping I can find another way to get a Visa debit card, because it blows my mind that they won't give me one, where for a debit card is literally still using my money in my bank account. I just want to buy things online, and so far the Japan banking system is not allowing me, or is blocking me to shop online. So hopefully I will figure this out, but once I figure it out, there's definitely going to be a video on the banking systems in Japan, since if you are a foreigner coming over thinking of wanting to live out here, that will definitely be a video helpful for you and hopefully save you as much headaches that it's giving me at the moment. But I will see you in the next Japan related video. Bye!